Here.
Dean Button,
Here.
Michael Dye,
Here.
Ann Herbert,
Here.
William Hutton,
Here.
Thomas Kazmierzak, Thomas Kazmierzak,
Can you hear me?
We can now, yes.
Dan Spitali,
Here.
Sharon Zaney,
Here.
Marcus Taylor.
Here.
9 present, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mrs. Morris-Smith. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes for July 19th and September 20th. Motion to defer the approval of the minutes.
Make a motion to defer the minutes.
Thank you. A motion made by Commissioner Spitali, Councilman Spitali, seconded by Commissioner Dye. Is that right?
Yep.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Councilman Spitali, seconded by Commissioner Dye, to defer the approval of the minutes of the following meeting, previous meetings, I'm sorry. Roll call on the motion.
Roger Brock,
Yes.
Michael Dye,
Yes.
Ann Herbert,
Yes.
William Hutton,
Yes.
Thomas Kazmierzak,
Yes.
Dan Spitali.
Yes.
Sharon Zaney.
Yes.
Marcus Taylor.
Yes.
Dean Button.
Yes.
9 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, motion passed.
Next item is old business. The chair would entertain a motion to suspend the regular order of business in order to move the Calumet College petition to the next item on the agenda. Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Motion to suspend rules.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Dye. I believe that's a second by Commissioner Herbert. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion made by Commissioner Dye, seconded by Commissioner Herbert to suspend the normal order of business, or suspend the rules to change the order of business. Roll call on the motion.
Roger Brock.
Yes.
Michael Dye.
Yes.
Ann Herbert.
Yes.
William Hutton.
Yes.
Thomas Kazmierzak.
Yes.
Dan Spitali.
Yes.
Sharon Zaney.
Yes.
Marcus Taylor.
Yes.
Dean Button.
Yes.
9 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, motion passed.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is item CP 21-14, a petition of Calumet College of St. Joseph, Inc., to reclassify property at 2450 New York Avenue from C4 General Commercial District to S2 Institutional District to construct, operate, and maintain a dormitory, living, recreational field, and future mixed-use development located within the city of Hammond, Lake County, Indiana.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Hutton.
Mr. President, I'd like to recluse myself for a potential conflict of interest on this matter.
Noted. Commissioner Hutton has been asked to recuse and will be accepted. Mrs. Morris-Smith, have the notification requirements been met?
Yes, they have. Yes, they have.
Thank you. I would ask the petitioner to come forward and make a petition on behalf of the petition, please. Hi, Dr. McCormick. How are you today?
Great, thank you. Well, I'm Amy McCormick. I'm the president of Calumet College, and I have with me Lynn Miskus, the vice president for finance and business, and also our architect, Jim Harkin, and he's with University Housing Solutions. So we are petitioning for a rezoning of the property, what is currently a vacant lot, and we are looking to build the first phase of residential housing on that lot, and so rezoning it from C4 to S2 makes it consistent with the zoning of the rest of the campus. And we have a campus master plan, of which the first phase is a 3-story, 63-bed residence hall for our students. It will be the first on-campus housing that we have, which we believe will make the college a stronger and greater asset for the city of Hammond.
Thank you, Dr. McCormick. Is there any questions from the commissioners to Dr. McCormick? Mr. Boland?
Sorry. Could you just go a little bit further, explain the playing field and the other potential development?
Yes, so our campus plan for that property is primarily a residential site for residence halls to provide on-campus housing for our students, many of which live in the city of Hammond and also at the Ileana and Whiting. In addition, our master plan, with any planning, we're trying to look into the future. So we do have a recreation field that would be used for recreational purposes for soccer, mostly athletics, but also available for community use. We also have a site plan for future development that could include housing, but it could also include maybe a classroom space on the first floor. So we've labeled it mixed use, but mixed use for the university, consistent with our zoning. But again, this is a 10-year master plan, of which the first phase would be the 3-story, 63-bed residence hall. And then the recreation field space would be our next priority, but it takes some fundraising, so.
Yes.
Mr. President, I just wanted
Counselor.
to point out, this property was originally owned by the Redevelopment Commission. At the last meeting, the Redevelopment Commission approved a purchase agreement, which is obviously conditioned on this rezoning, but a purchase agreement to the college. One of the conditions and one of the documents that's part of the overall transaction is a restrictive covenant that the college has agreed to that says that this property will only be used for college activities, a residence hall for students only, not for apartments and things like that. And that is a covenant that will be running with the land that can only be removed by the city at some point in the distant future, I suppose. But the city will have the discretion as to whether or not that ever gets removed. And the intent is that this property will then become part of the college for the life of the remaining life of the college, whatever that is, hopefully another 100 years.
Well, this is our 70th year anniversary, so let's say another 70 years, hopefully.
Definitely. Thank you, Counselor. Any further questions for our petitioner? Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. McCormick. We're going to open it up for a public hearing now, and so we'll take comments from the public and give you a chance to respond if there are any with regard to those, and then we'll move further through the process. So thank you for that. So I would now open the meeting up for a public hearing on the petition for Calumet College to reclassify the property to provide the appropriate zoning for this. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone in the audience? Oh, anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Sir? Would you please state your name and your address, please, for the record?
Mr. President, before we start, don't start the clock yet. Is there a clock, by the way?
Well, we don't have a clock now, but we would ask you to confine your comments to
It's less than a page of my comments.
be clear and concise. I appreciate that.
Just let me finish. But Mr. President,
Sir, this is the time for you to sign in on that sign-in sheet.
oh, okay.
And to state your name and your address.
I know, but first, Mr. President, you are video recording this meeting, but the recordings do not get posted to gohammond.com, the Planning Commissioner's site. Can that be fixed?
They do get posted after they are.
They are not.
They are. That's an IT question, but they are supposed to be posted after the meetings are done.
Yeah, there is not.
It's on. Okay, as our secretary said, it's on our YouTube site.
I see it on YouTube, but I reference gohammond.com, and it should be on there. Plus, there is a little comment that says, here's the last 5 videos of the meeting.
City of Hammond, and I'll show you afterwards, sir, how to locate it. if that's-
I appreciate if it was on the, on the Plan Commission site. That's where all the other ones are.
Okay, we can follow up with the IT department as to where it's at, but that is really their discussion, their discretion as to where it's posted.
Redevelopment is the same thing, and I had to do a 311 on them.
Sir, we will work on the administrative problem. If we could get to your comments at this time, please.
Okay.
If you could please state your name and your address.
My name is David Pustek, and I
Sorry,
live,
could you, I didn't catch your last name, and could you spell it?
hold on, let me do this.
Okay.
Pustek, P as in paper, U-S-T-E-K. Okay.
And your,
Please.
and sorry, your address for the record?
Oh, New York Avenue,
The number?
2523.
2528 New York Avenue.
Oh,
Thank you.
2523.
I'm sorry, what?
2523.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready for Mr. Pustek?
Yeah.
Please, sir.
Okay. I'm a little bit out of breath because I took the stairs up here, so if you'll excuse me for that. At the last mayor's night out, the mayor complained that St. Margaret's Hospital received city services but paid no property taxes. At the last common council meeting, the mayor presented the budget and stated the property tax revenue are going to be $39 million, while the cost of the Hammond Police are going to be $33 million. That statement is a strong indication that the mayor will be pushing for an increase in property tax. But yet, the city is giving up tax revenue to a private tax-exempt religious organization. There is taxpayer funding of $800,000 associated with this property, plus there is the waiving of the purchase price of $308,000. The donation to the college has an in-kind worth of over $1 million. Amico donated this property to the college, and the college in turn disposed of the property, receiving a windfall profit from the sale. Phil Schmidt donated or bequeathed the famous restaurant to the college, and the college in turn disposed of the property in the same manner. This pattern shows what will happen to this newly transferred property. It's ironic that the restaurant story is similar to this property transfer, but with a different outcome. When the restaurant began failing, the Redevelopment Commission agreed to buy, demolish, and relocate the restaurant. But Mayor McDermott said no, and he made the following statement, and I quote, "The bottom line is we were bailing out a business that was struggling, and there are other businesses that are struggling, and we're not buying them out," end of the quote. After the Common Council meeting, the mayor told me he just wanted to help out the college. That's a 180-degree turnaround. So far, it has been repeatedly asked, what are the benefits to the residents and the neighbors? But there has been no response at all. This $1 million of in-kind work was to be recovered by the property transfers, but that will never happen. This is an epic failure of fiduciary responsibility. Redevelopment and Common Council are complicit in this epic failure. In conclusion, the city can make amends with the residents and neighbors by designating the property at 2512 New York Avenue as a park. Presently, the property is used by the neighbors for strolling, walking the dogs, and playing baseball. The west side of New York Avenue did have a park with a baseball field, with the fences and everything in it. But that was overtaken by the development of the paired housing units. The park designation plan would restore what was previously lost. The neighborhood also lost the dirt paths for nature walks around George Lake when the newly built golf course restricted the neighbors from going to George Lake. So the neighborhood is sorely in need of green space. So I'm against this change in zoning, because that'll stop this transaction. And my understanding is that north of the college, there's suitable property for the development to take place. So that's an alternative for them.
Thank you, Mr. Pustek. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this action? If you could please state your name and sign in and give your address, please, for the record.
Hi, my name is Joe Postello, P as in Paul, I-S-T-E-L-L-O. My address is 2520. I am the most north house connected to the university, the first house south of the university,
That's New York Avenue, sir.
or New York Avenue, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I just want to know, we just moved in, we bought less than a year ago, and didn't hear anything about this, and now all of a sudden, you know, because we knew that there was a vacant lot, that's why we picked the lot that we're in. And I just want to know if we can be kept informed of what the barrier line's going to be like between whatever development that you guys wind up doing and my property line, and where that's all going to go. So I just want to make sure that we personally are kept in the loop somehow. That's all I'm asking.
Okay. The petitioner is going to get a chance to respond to any of these comments, if they so choose, and the staff, I'm sure, will be able to help with maybe perhaps answering some of those questions, and I know that their architect is here that may have additional details that may be able to help you, sir. But thank you for your comment.
Hello?
Is there someone online wishing to speak?
Yes.
Could you state your name and your address, sir, please?
My name is Juan Guzman, G-U-Z-M-A-N. Address is 2421 New York Avenue.
Thank you, Mr.
I live in
Guzman.
front of that college for 17 years. And I like what I see there with the animals and stuff. I wouldn't like that to go away. The deers and the animals are nice. Why take it away from them? You're taking it all away from them now. What you gonna do with the deers that live around the campus? I don't need no more housing back there. For what? To bring problems? Don't need no more problems. The neighborhood is quiet as it is. That's why I moved out there. Don't need no problems. The animals have rights too now. The deer's got somewhere to live. You're tearing up the woods for them. You're already building houses down there by 129. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Mr. Guzman.
I vote no, and I vote no.
Thank you, Mr. Guzman, for your comments. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this petition? Sir, you've had an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak? Sir, I'll give you one more chance to speak.
Well, wait till you get to the microphone before you say anything further.
It's just about the comments about the animals on the property. The property does contain deer, and those deer are a really good attraction to people passing by on their cars. They stop, or they slow down, they stop, they take pictures, they get out of their cars looking at the deer. There's a family of deer, as you said, in the woods on the property, and I can tell you in the spring, when we see the little Bambis, venture out of the woods and start playing and start, running, it is really a good sight. And this happens in the morning, so it makes your day. Now, today, or yesterday, or this time of year, the deers are sparring. So at night, we hear the clanging of their antlers. And again, it's just a nice thing to hear. Yesterday, and I can see this happening. And yesterday there was the head deer. He's got 12 points, and 2 other smaller deers challenged him. So there was a good battle to watch. So it's like a sport event that we're seeing. So again, that's one of the things that we're going to miss in the neighborhood. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Pustek. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this petition? Councilman Kowinski.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Kowinski, Johnson Avenue, 1st District. I have spoken before the Redevelopment Commission in favor of this project, and I believe that that hasn't changed for me here before you. I do believe that there are wildlife in the vicinity of Calumet College, and that the housing that will go up, if anything, may inhibit the issue of the deer approaching New York Avenue, which has been a hazard. So if that helps them to stay further back by George Lake and the golf course and the wooded areas back there, it'd probably be safer for them. I think the college at some point has talked about even being able to put out feeders out towards the back. Don't quote me on this, this is just hearsay. But I mean, there are ways to protect wildlife. And I think one of the ways is actually putting housing along New York Avenue or thereabouts to help them from coming across the street. So that's one thing. The other thing about the dorms, I believe, is that it's an economic engine potentially. Purdue University had put up their dorms a few years back with a great deal of success. It grew the college, it grew their numbers, and I really haven't heard of issues of complaints regarding bringing that into the neighborhood and more policing as a result of that, or more issues with crime. I believe that the college has an opportunity to grow. The Goose Island area is growing and has some momentum with the new housing along New York Avenue, the paired housing, as well as the nice new large homes going up behind them near the golf course. And I think new structures and buildings for the college that helps them improve and increase their enrollment is good, not just for the college, but for the surrounding neighborhood, as well as potentially some business as more numbers of students come to the college. That means more use of the business corridor around Goose Island, Whiting, and Robertsdale. And again, I know that this will probably come before the council, and I'm sure that I'll be the council person sponsoring that. Should it come before us, it'll be my pleasure to be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Sir? No, sir. You've had ample opportunity to speak at this public hearing. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? You're welcome to speak later at public expression, and you're welcome to attend the council meeting if and when this petition moves forward. Seeing that there's no other further discussion or public comment, I'll close the public hearing, and I would ask the petitioner if they could come forward if they would like to address any of the statements or comments that were brought forward tonight.
Thank you. You know, I do want to just address a little bit about the greenery around the campus and what we're looking to accomplish. It's actually to beautify New York Avenue. So right now it is an empty lot. Where the residence hall is going to go will not disturb any trees, so the tree line and the canopy that's along New York Avenue will remain. And even the construction should have little to no impact on the trees that are there. We are actually looking to add more green space, so our students love the deer too. We consider it a great asset. People often stop to take pictures, so I think adding more grass and greenery to the site versus an asphalt lot and providing some frontscape to Polygon would be a real enhancement, and also a place for the deer to remain. So there's no plan that we see that would not actually welcome more animals to our campus. So,
Could you address any comment about the southern boundary of
yes,
the property?
and definitely I want to take that gentleman's name, and we can keep him informed. In our plan for the green space, the recreational field, that would come along what would be 125th if it came through. And in our site plan, we do have a barrier of trees, so we would be adding trees to the campus. So some of that is to, again, beautify the campus from Lost Marsh. If you look from the 6th green, what you will see will be much more enhanced than what you see right now. So I think that it will add a sound buffer to the campus, but also just greenery, and it will be an enhancement, if anything. So,
Mr. President?
Mr. Poland.
Yes, I'd kind of like to expound upon that point one step further. For the person who made the comment, assuming that that person was in one of the paired homes. The property that is being discussed for rezoning stops at the northern right-of-way line of what would be 125th Street if it is extended. And there is additional property that was originally a part of the original parcel, and also will retain some of the original C4 zoning. It is the property that is south of the north right-of-way extension of 125th Street. So from the north end of the north paired home, there is an additional 170 feet, more or less, that is still going to be owned by the Redevelopment Commission, and then the 60 foot of right-of-way for New York Avenue. So there's additional land there that is a separation from where the college boundary is before you start the paired homes. And that property, again, is still in the ownership of the Redevelopment Commission, and no specific plans have been formulated at this point to address that, but that will also be a matter of rezoning at a future point in time.
and I'm happy to answer any other questions, but I thank you for hearing our application to rezone from what is now a commercial district to a S2 for the school with a defined plan in place that I think would really enhance the streetscape along New York Avenue, the college, and provide an economic benefit to the city of Hammond as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions for Dr. McCormick? Nope. Okay, thank you very much. At this point in the meeting, we would ask for staff comments, staff report on this petition.
Yes, and kind of taking again another step from the comments that I just made in answering the questions from the public hearing. Again, as stated, the property subject to the rezoning stops at the north right-of-way line of 125th Street as extended. Under its current zoning, C4, pretty much any commercial use is permitted to go on this property. Those of you that have been here for a while may have remember that the reason for the C4 zoning dates back to when there was a group of doctors who wished to develop this property as a hospital. That project obviously did not go through, but if it had, there would be a completely different environment on New York Avenue to have a hospital with an emergency room. And what the college is trying to do is, I guess you can all make your own judgments, but as far as I'm concerned, the proposed housing and even the playing fields would be a lesser intensive use in this area than any of the C4 uses that could exist on this property, and more importantly would be less intensive than if this was fully developed as a hospital. That being said, I think it's important to realize that I think it was stated by the petitioner that the S2 zoning that this is being proposed to change to is consistent with the S2 zoning of the current campus boundaries, and it would be just pretty much a logical extension, an expansion of the college for that to have that consistent zoning. Therefore, staff recommends that the Plan Commission forward the petition to the City Council with a favorable recommendation, and if the Plan Commission agrees with the recommendation, the staff requests that this report is adopted by the Plan Commission as preliminary findings of fact.
Thank you, Mr. Poland. Questions for Mr. Poland from the commissioners? Mr. Poland, I might ask if the rest of the commissioners would allow me, what was this parcel used before current condition?
Yeah, the parcel was originally one of the research laboratories of the Standard Oil / Amoco research facility that was built pretty much after World War II or in that time frame. And to be honest, I'm not sure exactly when they officially closed down. But that building was torn down, probably the former research lab was torn down, I'm going to guess 15 years ago. And that property had sat idle for quite some time, and that is where that discussion for the hospital came about at that same time, around the time of that demolition of the previous building.
So this was a previously developed site, and it was properly zoned for a commercial district based upon the building that was there before.
Prior to the rezoning to the C4 for the hospital, the property was, I believe, I1 zoned. It was an industrial zoning classification that corresponded to the research facility. The only remaining I1 zone of that property will be the Poly-John facility. The rest of that property has the zoning has been changed into certainly uses that are less intensive than an industrial use.
Thank you, Mr. Poland. I would just remind my colleagues on the board, on the commission, that the sole purpose of what we're doing here is rezoning, right? We're not making any development plans. Those have been done with the redevelopment commission. So our sole responsibility here is to consider rezoning from C4 to S2. Is that correct, Mr. Poland?
Yes. Yes.
Case. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Okay, the chair would entertain a motion based upon the staff's recommendation that this petition be forwarded to the City Council with a favorable recommendation. Is there such a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Dye. Is there a second? Second from Commissioner Zaney. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Roger Brock.
Yes.
Michael Dye.
Yes.
Ann Herbert.
Yes.
Thomas Kazmierzak.
Yes.
Dan Spitali.
Yes.
Sharon Zaney.
Yes.
Marcus Taylor.
Yes.
Dean Button.
Yes.
8 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention, motion passed.
The chair would also entertain a motion to accept the staff report as a finding of fact.
Motion to approve.
A second.
A motion by Commissioner Dye, seconded by Commissioner Taylor. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Roger Brock.
Yes.
Michael Dye.
Yes.
Ann Herbert.
Yes.
Thomas Kazmierzak.
Yes.
Dan Spitali.
Yes.
Sharon Zaney.
Yes.
Marcus Taylor.
Yes.
Dean Button.
Yes.
8 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention, motion passed.
Thank you, and congratulations to the petitioners. We look forward to the further process in your development. This will then go to the City Council for their recommendation, and I understand that Councilman Kalwinski will be the project sponsor. So thank you kindly. Is there any other action on that petition? No. So I would entertain a motion to return to the regular order of business.
Motion to return to the regular order of business.
Got Commissioner Dye. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hutton. Thank you. To return to the regular order of business, I'll take a roll call on the motion.
Roger Brock.
Yes.
Michael Dye.
Yes.
Ann Herbert.
Yes.
William Hutton.
Yes.
Thomas Kazimierzak.
Yes.
Dan Spitali.
Yes.
Sharon Zaney.
Yes.
Marcus Taylor.
Yes.
Dean Button.
Yes.
9 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, motion passed.
Thank you. Returning to the regular order of business, item 4, under old business, CP 21-12, petition of Shamrock Storage, Hammond LLC, and Mohammed Schauman for approval of a 2-lot re-subdivision of 167th Street and Southeastern Avenue addition to the city of Hammond, located at 6625 and 6641 Columbia Avenue, which is zoned C4 within the city of Hammond, Lake County, Indiana. Thank you. I would ask if the, Mrs. Morris-Smith, if the notification requirements have been met.
Yes, they have.
Thank you very much. I would turn it over to our esteemed petitioner, Mr. Don Tarenga, if you could state your name and your company, please. I guess at this point, do we need his address? Address too.
Address for record.
My name is Don Torenga. I'm with Torenga Engineering, 907 Ridge Road, Munster, Indiana. We are the engineers of record on the petition in front of you tonight. I do have a limited power of attorney that was signed by both petitioners, allowing me to represent them. That would be Gregory O'Haran, who is the owner of Lot 2, and also Mohammed Schauman, who is the owner of Lot 1 of...
Was that agreement sent to us, or is that a new agreement? Or?
It's new. I don't know how new it is, Brian. It was signed today.
Okay, so I'm not sure if I've actually received that, but...
Okay. Anyway, what we are here tonight, what I'm here tonight to present is a previous subdivision that was done, I think in 2016, for the old Stardust bowling lanes. And at the time, Shamrock Builders purchased Lot 2, or the Stardust bowling lanes, and they also wanted to construct 2 buildings immediately north of that. They got permission with the previous subdivision, and they did construct one of those buildings, which is currently in operation. At the time, there were a lot of issues with easements, and they did not have proper credentials, I guess you would say, in order to build the second building. So with this subdivision, what we are attempting to do is we're attempting to clean those easements up where they cross across Lot 1, which was previously a barn. I cannot remember the name of it. Legends. Okay, and it was owned by Gus Iatrides. We, with the new re-subdivision of 167th and Southeastern Avenue, we are dedicating a 10-foot private storm sewer easement, a 10-foot private sanitary sewer easement to cross Mr. Schauman's property to get to Shamrock Builders' property. And we are also dedicating an ingress-egress easement which meanders from the entrance at the northwestern corner of Lot 1 and services the Lot 2 property. There are a number of different things that, that I also have. I don't know that you got any of this stuff either, Brian. I'm not sure. An agreement to terminate and vacate the previous easements?
I know that I received an email from someone, whether it was Scott or Greg, I'm not quite sure, with a whole bunch of attachments in it.
Yes.
And I have not reviewed that.
Okay.
So that could be where that information is.
Right. So in that information, there's an agreement to terminate and vacate the previous easements. There's also a declaration of reciprocal easements in which both entities have signed them, and then there are commitments concerning the use and the development of the real estate which were agreed upon at the Board of Zoning Appeals. So with that, that pretty much ends my presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Questions for Mr. Turenga? Mr. Turenga, if I might, where does the building sit, the former Legends Bar sit in relation to the 10-foot private storm sewer easement?
The former Legends building is just north of that.
It's just north of, so there's no building encroachment onto that?
I don't think so. You know, that's.
I just wanted to clear that up to
No.
make sure that we're.
In other words, would the easement be going through it? No.
Yeah, we don't want a storm sewer running through. So provided that that's true, thank you for answering my question.
Certainly.
Any other, I asked, but I'm going to ask again, any other questions for Mr. Turenga? Thank you, Mr. Turenga. We'll open it up for a public hearing.
Okay.
Because I have to, yeah. So public hearing, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition of the petition? Anyone in the audience wishing to comment at all on the petition? Being none, I will close the public hearing. Mr. Turenga, is there anything else you want to add at this time?
No, I don't believe so.
Thank you very much. I would then turn it over to Mr. Poland for a staff report.
Okay. This property, as was noted, was previously subdivided into two lots at that time. Those two boundaries reflected the actual ownership of the property at the time of where Legends was owned by Mr. Iatrides. It was a relatively narrow, long rectangular piece of property, and then the remainder of the former bowling alley was the rest of the property. The property boundaries that are shown in this plat are reflective of a property ownership swap that has occurred prior to the subdivision, in which the owner of the now self-storage units acquired the eastern portion of the former Legends parcel in exchange, or whatever financial arrangements were related to it, to a portion of the parking area that is immediately south of the former Legends building. So in some respects, this subdivision plat is memorializing an existing transaction. The easements are a bit kind of complicated. It was something that was talked about during the original subdivision. There is an original access easement that dates back to the 1960s, and depending upon the interpretation of the language as to whether or not that easement is still in effect, but nonetheless, it was reflected on the previous subdivision. So one of the documents that was just discussed that have been submitted but I haven't reviewed is the expectation of the termination of that easement from the 1960s. What the existing subdivision and this subdivision also does is overlays a cross-access easement from the Legends parcel to provide access to the self-storage parcel because of the curb cuts that exist for these two lots are in effect on Columbia Avenue in front of the Legends parcel, and that access easement needs to be maintained. So the original subdivision plat had an overlaid an access easement on top of the 1960s easement, and then also extended down the existing property line. Since that property line is now being changed to reflect this property swap, a portion of that is what is being terminated. And that's, in essence, the eastern half of the access easement that was on the common property line. That is what is being terminated. It is being replaced by an access easement that follows the new parcel lines. So it kind of forms, so to speak, a U shape. The commitment documents that came out of the BZA action was, there were some basically covenant restrictions that were tied to making sure that proper things are being stored, or things that shouldn't be stored in a self-storage facility are being prohibited, basically flammables and other dangerous materials. Since the legal description is changing with this subdivision, the BZA action modified that under the petition for the, whatever the case number it was, that was modified to extend that requirement that was on the original parcel to cover the new geography or the new legal description of the other parcel, and it was subject to this plat being approved. So all this is linked together in order to reconcile these property boundary differences. With that, there is some technical things that the staff still wants to review based on the late receipt of the documents this afternoon that have been referred to, and just making sure that the notations on the plat are coordinated and in sync with those documents. So the staff does recommend that the Plan Commission give both preliminary and final approval of the subdivision plat, subject to the technical corrections, confirmation of the concurrence from the adjacent property owner, the recording of the easement releases, and the declaration of reciprocal easements, covenants, restrictions for the access and the utilities. And then if the Plan Commission agrees, staff requests that the Plan Commission adopt the staff report as findings of fact.
Thank you, Mr. Poland. Questions for Mr. Poland from the commissioners? I, as usual, have one. Mr. Poland, Lot 1 is the bar, or the former bar. Will there be sufficient parking available for the business based upon the new property boundaries?
There's, well, obviously it depends upon the size of the building. Based on the current size of the building, and of course, depending upon the use of the building, there should be adequate parking. We also do know that the self-storage facility has more parking than it's required to have. So it is very easily conceivable to have a shared parking or cross-parking agreement that, you know, depending upon the parking requirements of the former Legends building, that there is available spaces in the area that could make up any deficit that exists on the property.
So would this be an appropriate time then to suggest that a cross-parking agreement be part of the conditions of this approval?
I know that we have discussed that. I have discussed that with the attorney. I'm not sure if it's, since there's several unknowns at this time, I'm a little reluctant to make that a requirement. You know, typically we do want to have all these things kind of worked out, but that is kind of a zoning matter being attached to a subdivision matter where the access question is really more relevant to rather than a cross-parking agreement.
Thank you kindly. Noted. Any other questions for Mr. Poland? Hearing none. Chair would entertain a motion to grant preliminary and final approval of the subdivision plat subject to the technical corrections, confirmation of concurrence from the adjacent property owner, the recording of the easement releases and declaration of reciprocal easements, covenants and restrictions for access and utilities. Is there such a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Dye. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zaney for the preliminary and final approval with conditions. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Roger Brock.
Yes.
Michael Dye.
Yes.
Ann Herbert.
Yes.
William Hutton.
Yes.
Thomas Kazmierzak.
Yes.
Dan Spitali.
Yes.
Sharon Zaney.
Yes.
Marcus Taylor.
Yes.
Dean Button.
Yes.
9 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, motion passed.
Thank you. The chair would also entertain a motion to adopt the staff report for this petition as a finding of fact. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Councilman Spitali. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hutton. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Roger Brock.
Yes.
Michael Dye.
Yes.
Ann Herbert.
Yes.
William Hutton.
Yes.
Thomas Kazmierzak.
Yes.
Dan Spitali.
Yes.
Sharon Zaney.
Yes.
Marcus Taylor.
Yes.
Dean Button.
Yes.
9 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, motion passed.
Thank you, Mr. Torenga.
Thank you very
Always a
much.
pleasure to see you, sir.
And we will work with Brian to get those things straightened out before the plat is actually recorded.
And thank you for your patience for us to go
Oh, certainly.
slightly out of order. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you. So ends old business. Next item on the agenda is new business.
No, no new business.
Thank you, Mr. Poland. Any correspondence for the Plan Commission?
Staff has no correspondence.
Thank you. Any commissioner comments?
Mr. President,
Thank you, Mr. Kazmierzak, please.
my only comment during the public expression portion during that hearing for the Calumet College, we had that gentleman on Zoom for his comment, and I don't know if anybody else was able to notice, but he was driving during that portion with having us on the video feed. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm assuming that it's not legal. I would say that if we're going to continue to be able to do Zoom meetings, there should be some sort of stipulation that states you cannot be driving at the time that you're making your public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Kazmierzak. We will refer that to our legal counsel for an opinion and how to handle that going forward, but I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay. Staff comments?
Yes. If those of you that recall when I asked about having this meeting tonight to handle those two cases, I, at the time, expected that there was no reason to have the regular Plan Commission meeting. The situation has changed, and we have a petitioner who is furiously trying to get a project through the process to keep their construction schedule in order to start this fall before the winter. This is a project that is also in the Cabela area and is adjacent to the car wash that we looked at the last meeting. So this would be a development plan approval, and I would ask that we still keep the 18th as a meeting date, and that if there is anybody who has a conflict at this point in time, please let us know as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Poland. Public comment. It looks like the public has left. And so I guess the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Hutton. Thank you, Mr. Dye. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.